Hey everyone, this is Deborah Anderson, the Black Woman Animator, coming back to you with another video. This video is going to be about what professional women need to know about themselves. This is pretty much a generic video about some tendencies that women pursuing their careers seem to have. Most of the topics are like internal work, or just realizing that there are women that are kind of climbing the ladder in different industries, but there are some things that we tend to do that it seems to be the same amongst a lot of women. And I just want to create a video so that you know and you can work on it and realize, oh, that's something that I do, or oh, that's something that I need to work on, just so we can get just a general professional space to kind of grow and be better, because there are a lot of things that are based on what guys do, but there are also things that hold us back that we do to ourselves. So this is not going to be in any particular order, just going over some things to look out for as if you're just graduating from college and pursuing your career, or if you're in the trenches and just don't realize some things that could be happening. If you feel comfortable with any of these things, feel free to continue to do them, but I just wanted to shed light on some things that a lot of women have in common. And so the first thing that we tend to do is be loyal to a fault. In the different Facebook groups that I'm in, there are women who are looking for advice, and sometimes I just look at it and like, you just really need to leave. The people aren't treating you well. You're having to climb uphill to get little things, and then you're asking for certain things that you need to do your job, and then a guy will get it. And that's just not an environment you need to be in. I understand that we're trying to get the landscape to be better, but some places you just don't need to be in. So I personally feel like you don't owe any company your loyalty, no matter how good or bad they've been to you, because a lot of states in America are at will. So if they want to get rid of you, they'll do it if they need to, whether they like you or they don't. So if you are not happy, if you want a higher salary, if you want to try something new, if you want to increase your skill set and you're not getting that at your current company, leave. You do not have to stay. We do not need to be loyal to these entities. I understand that there's people that work at these companies and you might like certain people, but you need to do what's best for yourself. If you're okay with just doing the same old every day in and out, and your job is just to get a paycheck, and most of your passion is from outside of your job, then feel free to keep doing that. But if your career is important to you, you want growth, you want to learn, and your current position is not providing that for you, I always encourage to just leave. And one strategy in that is that you can always get a job. Well, not always get a job, but it's easier to get a job when you already have one. So don't go on a rage and quit, and then you won't be able to find a new job for 2 months or something like that. Be job searching. If you get these little triggers like, oh, I noticed they do this. I don't really like that. And that's when you go on Indeed or whatever job site, LinkedIn Jobs, and start looking for a job, start applying, and then secure that contract. And then that's when you're like, okay, peace. So yeah, I don't think you should have to be tormented by going to work every day at some place that you don't like. And even if you are totally happy, and then maybe through networking, maybe through being involved outside of work, or maybe even through just having a well created LinkedIn profile, someone reaches out to you with another opportunity. And if you want to take that opportunity and it makes sense, even if the people have been nice to you, take the opportunity. That's another place where loyalty comes into play. You're like, oh man, they've given me all these things. They've like provided me with professional development. They've provided me with raises when I asked. They've provided me with promotions. But that's what a company's supposed to do. So even when they do all that, if you receive an outside opportunity and it makes sense, always take it. You don't have to be loyal to that particular company. There's a Facebook group I'm in where a young lady was talking about how at work she has this computer and the RAM on the computer is not enough to run the program she needs to do her job. And she's been asking, I remember her introducing this maybe 6 months ago about how they're not really trying to upgrade her computer. And she said how they've given another employee a computer, that they gave her a new computer, but it's still not up to par with the program that she needs to use. And so she recently came into the Facebook group and was asking for advice. And I told her that she needs to leave because they're just being ridiculous. If you need certain resources to do your job and they're not providing you with that. And then she kind of came back like, oh, should I tell them that I'm unhappy and I want to leave? And it's like, no, do not show your hand. Don't show them your cards, because they'll maybe even fire you on the spot. Do not show your hand. If you're unhappy, do what you need to do first. And then even if you're happy at a position and you get that outside opportunity, get all the ducks in a row and then present it. If you want to possibly stay at your company, present that to your company and see if they have a counter offer for you to stay. Otherwise, leave. And if it's a bad place to be, why would you tell them? Like, they've shown you who they are. Believe them. Why would you show your hand so they can either make your life even more miserable or fire you on the spot, and then you don't have any money that is coming in to pay your bills? So yeah, we need to stop being loyal to a fault, because it doesn't really benefit you. It probably benefits the company depending on what you're doing, but it definitely doesn't benefit you if you're not happy. Another thing that is an issue with all people, but definitely with women, is imposter syndrome. No matter how many degrees we have, how many years of experience, if we've climbed Mount Kilimanjaro, if we've have a husband, 2 kids, and still can be an entrepreneur, so for some reason we think we don't deserve what we have, no matter how hard we have worked for it. And that's just some internal work we as people have to do, is that we are making decisions, we're performing actions, and we do deserve what we are receiving. Man, I don't know what the science is behind imposter syndrome, but it's just some internal work that we have to do when we just feel like no matter how many think pieces we've written, you have a PhD and you still don't think you deserve to be a professor. What if I felt like, oh, I've worked on Family Guy, but I still don't think I'm like a viable person in the animation industry. I mean, I have these experiences, I've gained knowledge, I've learned different tools, sometimes on the job. I deserve to just be appreciated in any job that I have. And then they hire you because a lot of times that you fit what they needed. so you're supposed to be there. And then when something with the kind of the gender pay gap, or just our access to different jobs, is that when women look at a job description, we will see 10 bullet points, and if we do not fit all 10 bullet points, we will not apply for the job. But there are some guys who, they see those 10 bullet points and they have 0 to 5 of them, and they're like, yep, I'm a good fit for that job. I was talking to a friend about this a couple weeks ago. He said he knows 2 guys that had 0 of the bullet points for jobs, and they ended up getting the job. So in one situation, the guy had none of the bullet points. He applied for the job. They gave him the job, and they didn't realize till a year later that he was not qualified for the job. I mean, if he faked it that long, I figured they should have kept him, but apparently I guess he got fired. And then there was another guy he knew where he didn't have any of the bullet points for the qualifications, but he talked to them and explained to the company, this is how I feel like I can be good in this job, and they gave him an opportunity. So I think we as women should stop thinking of the qualifications for the job to be a gatekeeper, or if you don't meet all of them, that you can't apply for the job. Because in all honesty, the human resources industry is not the best anyway, so sometimes they give these bullet points for the job, and those aren't even the required bullet points that you need to have to even do the job. So if it just looks like something you want to do, maybe go a different route and find somebody at the company and explain to them how you can work in that position, or even use your cover letter to explain, I mean that's what a cover letter is for, to kind of one up you. And if you've had a lot of space in between jobs, that's in the cover letter is where you explain why that happened. If you're just in a seemingly totally different industry or position, the cover letter is where you try to convince the people to give you a chance. So stop applying to jobs that you stop thinking you have to have all the bullet points to apply for the job. You can do it even if you have less than 100%. You still have to feel comfortable with applying for the job, so whatever your comfortability is, just go with that. But stop making comfortable at 100%, because you can still, like, we're awesome. Like, women have attention to detail. We'll look at all around the problem and stuff like that. So, and then there's Google. So you can do it. You don't have to have 100% to apply for that job. Another thing that women need to be aware of is we don't ask for what we are worth. So there's definitely some sexism and discrimination when it comes to salaries and the gender pay gap, but sometimes it's that we're asking for too low. I remember I was going to these women in technology sessions here in New Orleans, and it was a thing where everyone had to share their story about the topic, and you couldn't share someone else's story. You had to share your own personal story about the topic. And I remember, I can't remember what the topic was, but one of the women, she shared how she's in IT, she applied for a job, and that instance she asked a male counterpart, okay, what salary would you ask for this position? He gave her a number. It was much more than she would have thought of. She went to the company. That's the salary I wanted. And they accepted it. She didn't end up taking the job, but she also didn't use that strategy again. For me, when I heard that story, I'm like, if I use that strategy and ask a guy, okay, what salary would you ask? Every time I'm asking a guy what salary would you ask so I can get what I am deserving of, or at least get what guys are getting. Because, I mean, even guys who don't have a lot of experience think they're worthy of more. And so we definitely need to start thinking we are worth more. If you want to use the strategy of asking a male counterpart what he would ask, what salary he would ask for, that's a strategy you can use. You can use Glassdoor and see what the comparable salaries are, but ask for more. Like, we just shortchange ourselves and think we could only get pennies as compared to what others get or ask for. Another thing to watch out for: don't become the secretary or the party planner if you do not want to. I know that in like male-dominated industries, we will have, like, they want to have coworkers get together, do little parties for holidays, Christmas, Thanksgiving. So there might be like birthdays, job anniversaries, or just other things that the company wants to celebrate. And a lot of times women will be in the place to do that. If that's like a side passion, feel free. Have agency, do that. But if you don't want to do it, do not take it on. I know that in a previous job, they asked me to come into a meeting to take notes, but I was definitely going to take that opportunity because it was a meeting in which a lot of big wigs in different companies in the animation industry were coming to be an advisory committee, and I wanted to hear what they said. And I was privy to so much information that other people aren't privy to in that meeting. So I was like, yeah, I have attention to detail. I'm a great secretary, and in that particular instance, yes, please. And they like my notes. They like how detailed I was. So I got invited to other meetings involving that advisory committee. So I'm like, oh, I get to hear about what IKEA, CNN, Blizzard, and all these places are doing in the industry. Sign me up. But then in another position, in the job that I had, it was just me and another guy. And then I remember we had to go into a meeting, and our supervisor was asking for a volunteer to take notes, and both of us did not volunteer. And then the next thing I know, the supervisor's like, "Oh, Deborah, how about you take notes?" And I'm like, why am I didn't say that. I ended up just taking the notes, but I'm just like, why did you choose me? I didn't volunteer. He didn't volunteer. Why couldn't you just randomly pick him? I don't want to take notes in this. I want to just pay attention. And so I know at different jobs, if there's a fridge, the women usually end up cleaning out the fridge. If you're taking coffee orders, a lot of times, sometimes women lunch orders. I mean, if you want to do that, then feel free, but maybe even challenge them if they are always asking the women to do certain things. Maybe challenge them on that. I read an article about how the woman didn't really want to be a party planner, and they gave it to one of the guys, and he did a fantastic job. I don't know if he naturally thought to volunteer himself, but he ended up doing an awesome job with the party that they ended up planning. So guys have talents too. So if you don't want to be the secretary or the party planner, speak up. Another thing that women have to be aware of is being overtalked in meetings. One way to handle this is to reach out to your supervisor or someone in the meeting to let them know and see how that goes. There were, at previous positions, there were times where some guys were just doing a little bit too much, and I'm like, you just graduated from college, and I've worked at an animation company in a foreign country. I have, at that point, 7 years of experience. I think I know what I'm talking about, and I'm doing this in a program that you don't even know. stop questioning me. And so I had to go to my manager and ask him how to handle it. And he just instructed me, sit down with the guy, tell him about it. And I guess sometimes I didn't know I was doing that. Okay, well, I'm telling you, you're doing it. Another way to handle it that I've seen, I saw this with when President Obama was president, and some of the women staffers felt like they were getting overtalked in his meetings, to have a male advocate. So if you can talk to a guy, put him on notice that sometimes when you offer an idea, it's overlooked, but then 15 minutes later, a guy offers it, and then they're like, oh yeah, that's a good idea. So you can have a guy in there to put on notice. He can notice that thing, and then once the guy says it, oh, but didn't Deborah come up with that idea 15 minutes ago? So it's better sometimes for a guy to say it than for you to point it out. So that's a different strategy for handling that. So that's another thing to look out for. Another thing is to make sure you're exhibiting characteristics of leadership if you want to get promoted. Going back to the women in technology roundtables that I used to go to, there was another woman that mentioned a situation where she wanted to be promoted. She would interview for higher positions, and there was one particular time that she didn't get it. Just to give some background, she would, bring little candies for her coworkers, bring little gifts, trinkets, do all the nice things. And after she didn't get the position, she had a friend that was had knowledge into the decision-making part, and she asked him, like, why am I not getting this promotion? And it was a matter of her being too nice, but not in a stereotypical way. It was that they didn't see her exhibit the characteristics of being in a manager position. So they didn't see how she would be able to deliver bad news, how she would be able to tell people what they needed to do, because she was always only exhibiting a certain kind of characteristics. So after getting that knowledge, she was able to, in projects that she worked on, try to be more vocal about giving people feedback, and that didn't mean she had to stop bringing people gifts, bringing people candy, but you have to exhibit the characteristics of the position you want. So if you want to be a manager, you have to show them how you want to do that. I remember when I was at a previous position, I had applied to be a manager, and they had told me the reason the other guy who had only been there 3 months and worked, his previous position was Starbucks. But somehow me having a degree specifically in animation and working in the industry, I didn't get the management position. And they claimed that it was because, he was the leader of this project, and so that's why we gave it to him. But then I also knew that I was the one who, there was 3 of us on the project, and we pretty much had even job duties, and he created a spreadsheet, and so that meant that he was the leader of the project. So, okay. But yeah, make sure you're exhibiting the characteristics that you want in getting the position. Another thing that I would like to talk about is just, if there's someone, and it's not exclusive to women, but if there's something that somebody is doing that is making you uncomfortable or that you don't like, feel free to speak up about it. There have been, I have 2 instances that I'm thinking of. There was one instance where a coworker, I talked to a lot of my coworkers, and this particular coworker, he started calling me Sparky, which the reason he chose that name was because he felt like I was a spark plug. But when he said it, all I just thought was he was calling me a dog, and I'm like, I don't like that nickname. So in that instance, I never confronted him about it, but I just never responded to the nickname. And then he eventually ended up stopping calling me Sparky. But I just was like, I just feel like, other than Sparky Anderson with the Detroit Tigers, I just feel like, I mean, it's like an old white guy name or a dog's name, and I just didn't like the nickname, so I just like, I'm just not gonna respond positively to that. And then there was another instance where, you know, I'm in the South, some older people are given leeway on certain things, and it's like, or respect your elders type thing, but I think younger people deserve respect as well. So I had an older gentleman who was a coworker, and he didn't mean it in a bad way, but sometimes when he would talk to me, he would call me a little girl, and every time he said that, I'm like, no, I'm a woman. And it's like, okay, it's cool that you're 60 and like twice my age, but being 30 something, I'm still considered a woman. So, and that doesn't give you the agency to call me a little girl. So he stopped calling me that, and there was some like pushback, like, oh, just using that old man thing where, oh, I don't mean anything by it, but I just don't feel comfortable with you calling me little girl, because especially in the society we live in where women are just not considered adults and we're considered children, and then the fact that I look really young and people don't consider me an adult and treat me like a college student or a child all the time, I'm not going to respond positively to you calling me little girl. So I actually verbally pushed back on that, and then he eventually stopped calling me that. So you have to take the strategy that you think is best, but if there's just something that you're uncomfortable about, I definitely encourage you to speak to that person about it and see how it goes. If you have any other things that women who are professionals should look out for, definitely put it in the comments and we can discuss it. But I will see you in the next video.